Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, week 6 in the books. Did you enjoy the games yesterday?
Yeah, I did. Some weird results, I would say. Not necessarily maybe in like who won and who lost, but more of like how the games went, I would say. That's kind of my takeaway from the weekend. We'll get into all of these games. I know there's probably a few that some would like to talk about more than others, but we'll get into them like we always do.
Yeah, we sure will. We got 9 games to recap here. It was a busy weekend in the ACC, and I mean, obviously, if you follow any more than just this conference, it was a pretty wild weekend across the country, and we had our share of that in the conference as well. So, Mike, with that being said, do we want to go ahead and commence with our Rhoback Rapid Recap?
Well, no, because I want to bring this comment up on the screen, and I don't know what it's referring to yet, but Mr. Jin Wright says, I owe you all an apology. I was wrong about you. Thank you, Mr. Jin.
Appreciate that. I'm trying to, was it Mr. Jin Wright? Was it him who came on and commented on the preview video saying that we were going to be losing money on Duke? Which technically you did. You had Duke on in that game.
Yeah.
Took a little bit of clarification of like, wait, which one of us is losing money on the Duke game? But
we'll talk about that in a bit. I feel like I was on the right side of that for a good portion of the game, and then that just really got away from me late.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, that was kind of a weird game in and of itself. So, we will get into that. Mike, are you ready for our Rhoback Rapid Recap?
Let's do it.
All right. We do not have producer Scott with us here tonight.
Shout out Scott.
Yeah, shout out to Scott. Love you and miss you, buddy. If you heard the last episode, you'll know why. Don't want to dig any further into that. But with Scott not here, one of the things that you all lose is the timer on the screen. So we'll just be doing that manually, and you'll just have to trust us that this will be 10 minutes or less. How's that sound?
Well, good news, Joey, because I have this doohickey on my phone.
We have the technology.
A timer. And we are going to set it for 10 minutes, and you're going to hear a duck start quacking because that's the sound I use to get my son to start listening to me. 10 minutes on the clock. See it on the screen.
There you go. That'll work.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go, Joey. Syracuse 44, UNLV 41 on Friday night in Las Vegas. Oh my God. Syracuse got lucky here in a lot of different ways here.
They sure did. Yeah, this really set the tone for the weekend. Syracuse, a team that I think in this game really kind of was the epitome of a team that really seems to run hot and cold at times, where, I mean, they looked awesome in the first quarter and then like kind of were wandering in the wilderness for a while in the second half and then pulled it together, at a certain point later. Like it was very up and down game for Syracuse, but this is a really good win against a really good UNLV team, I think, with a really good coaching staff and all that. So shout out to Syracuse for getting that win. That's a big deal.
A lot of plays here.
Yeah.
Like 89 from scrimmage for Syracuse. A lot of plays here. They got a little bit fortunate at the end. Syracuse hit the field goal to start overtime, and UNLV thought they had gotten off the field. They didn't. A really tough roughing the passer penalty called on UNLV late that really just ended all chances they had. So, I mean, just rough. Just rough.
There were more than just this game this weekend that there seemed like there was some questionable officiating that might have had a significant impact on the outcome of the game. There was that. There was just a lot of weird moments here.
Second half chop block was not great. That was called against Syracuse. So Syracuse fans, I think, have a legitimate gripe there on that big play. So the officiating was interesting. UNLV, tough pill to swallow there because you got all your hopes and dreams still in front of you. I think for UNLV, for Syracuse, this is a huge win. Like you need to figure out a way to get this one.
Absolutely. Syracuse 44, UNLV 41.
Next.
Number 8, Miami 39, Cal 38. Man, First of all, wild comeback win for Miami. This was maybe the wildest game of the weekend in the ACC. Cal with a massive lead. Miami just looked dead in the water mid third quarter and found a way to come all the way back. Again, there was some officiating shenanigans late in this game, it seemed like, for the second week in a row against Miami, we'll say. And yet Miami gets it done. They remain undefeated. I'm definitely starting to question, though, if Miami is really as bulletproof as we want to make them out to be.
Cam Ward can play, and thank God Miami has Cam Ward, because otherwise they would be in rough shape. We'll get into the officiating later. Cal ran out of steam. I think bottom line, Cal just ran out of steam.
Another game, like you mentioned, though, Syracuse ran a ton of plays in that game. Miami ran a ton of plays in this game. And you start getting some exhausted defenses, and gives you a chance to pull something off late.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Yep. Number 15, Clemson, 29, Florida State, 13. A game that I don't think was nearly as close as it looks on the scoreboard, but it's fine. Like Clemson rolls here. They get a late field goal with about a minute and a half left in this game that was significant to some, we'll say, as they cover whatever number you got this at. We picked it at 14.5. You probably got it at 16?
I got it 14.5.
There you go.
I am some. I bet it on Tuesday. So, yeah. Clemson could not finish drives here. They had, going into the fourth quarter, they had 4 red zone possessions and did not score a touchdown. They did not score a touchdown in the red zone all night. So, yeah, they were due for one of these on offense. They were due.
Something else I want to come back to with this later. I saw Clemson go up. What was it, like 10-0 early? It was. Let me look. It was they went up like 17-0 in the first quarter. And at that point, I looked at somebody I was next to. I was like, "You need to go get on Clemson laying 30 or whatever." I was like, "I think Florida State's defense is going to quit here," and they did not. So credit to Florida State in that defense. They kept playing. They kept playing. So good on them.
SMU 34, Louisville 27. I mean, Louisville, I think, got outplayed here for a good win for SMU. I feel like Louisville got outplayed here. Yes, they got screwed on a fumble recovery that would have stymied SMU's go-ahead touchdown drive. I get it, but they got a little outplayed here.
More officiating shenanigans, yes, but yeah, to me, I mean, the bigger story here is this is probably the third game in a row for Louisville, and it's all 3 games that they've played against any team that really kind of has a pulse. There have been a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of sloppiness from Louisville, and I don't know that defense is doing quite as much as we thought it was going to do. So might be some trouble in paradise here in Louisville. That team we kind of thought was going to be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the ACC. I'm not so sure they look like it right now.
No, Kevin Jennings went for nearly 400 all-purpose at quarterback for SMU, so that tells you about everything you need to know here. Joey, we're under 5 minutes, just to let you know. Moving on. Virginia 24, Boston College 14. Boston College had the lead deep into the second half here, and Virginia was the beneficiary of one of the worst turnovers of the season. Thomas Castellanos... I don't know what we want to really call that play. But
I texted you, never go full Jameis, as in Jameis Winston in the Rose Bowl.
Gifted Virginia I don't even want to know. I don't even know if I want to really call it a pass. It was kind of just like a flare out to the sideline, and Virginia just took that back to the house. That was really nice. So that really turned things on its head here. Virginia just keeps finding ways to win games. They're now 4-1. We know what the schedule situation is the rest of the year, but this was a huge win for their hopes of bowl eligibility. Yeah,
completely. By the way, Bill O'Brien not happy in the post-game press conference, and our buddy Dan Rubin caught the business end of that for a minute there.
Shout out Chris Grondin for flagging that for us. I enjoyed listening to that, just for obvious reasons. We love Dan.
That was funny.
Pitt 34.
Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Yeah, go.
Fire. No, you got fire.
Pitt 34, North Carolina 24. Man, a game I didn't really feel like was maybe as close as it is on the scoreboard, but Pitt does pull away a little bit late here in the fourth quarter, and North Carolina's got issues, man. Pitt's 5-0, by the way. Pitt might be legit good here.
Yeah, like, get a ticket on ACC title good. Like, they could be in the mix there, and I'm not even joking. They could be in the mix. Eli Holstein, spectacular. Carolina had no answers for him. Pittsburgh's defense, we'll get into it, a little questionable, but they figured it
A few
out.
more holes than we're used to there for a Pitt defense, we'll say.
Yeah, for sure.
Wake 34, NC State 30. Another late comeback. Wake scores with about a minute left to win this game. Huge for the Deeks. They needed this in the worst way. NC State, man, 0-2 in ACC play. They're down to 3-3 now. They've got issues. Grayson McCall, by the way, he started this game and then went out pretty quickly with a nasty-looking injury.
Rock'em Sock'em Robot helmet situation there. He really got popped.
He was carted off, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He's okay, released from the hospital. So good news. I can make the joke that I just made because he is okay, thankfully. But yeah, was ugly in real time. I was like, man, that's not. I texted you guys right as soon as it happened. I was like, this is not. We got a serious situation here with McCall.
Scary looking injury for sure.
Yeah.
Huge day for Damon Claiborne, by the way. 20 carries, 136 yards for the Deeks, kind of leading that offense throughout that game.
Consequential down the stretch. He was really good. Georgia Tech 24, Duke 14. Joey, how you feeling?
Good. I mean, again, a game that I think was maybe a little closer on the scoreboard than it was actually on the field. I mean, I think Tech outplayed Duke by and large, throughout this game for the most part. Needed 14 points in the fourth quarter to get it done, but I mean, it was a 3-point game at halftime where Duke had 75 yards of offense in the first half.
Yeah.
So again, I survive in advance, got the win, outgained him by like 150 yards. So we'll take it.
Ho hum. Virginia Tech 31, Stanford 7. Justin Lamson for Stanford at quarterback. Woof, buddy.
Yeah,
he's real bad. Virginia Tech played well here. Just really boring football game if you watched it, but we'll take.
I was gonna say it's like everyone just agreed, like, let's just get this over with and get out of here. Like
Yeah.
they got to halftime in like an hour and 15 minutes, I think it was. It was like, holy crap, this game's already over?
Low possession game. Stanford had 8 possessions, not even counting like the 3 or 4 plays they ran at the end when it was 31-7. They had like 8 real possessions in this game. They had a missed field goal. They had 4 punts. They had an interception. They had a fumble. And they had 1 touchdown. So not ideal for Stanford's offense on Saturday. And we did. 35 seconds.
There you go. Look at that. That's your Rhoback Rapid Recap, brought to you by Rhoback.com. Go use promo code GOACC20 at checkout for 20% off your first order. They got all sorts of really great performance apparel. They've got a bunch of polos. I've got a whole bunch of them. I wear to work. I wear to church. I wear on the golf course. Anywhere you want to look good and feel good. Rhoback.com. They got great stuff, T-shirts and shorts and all sorts of athletic wear. Go get it all. Rhoback.com.
Shout out to our newest sponsor.
That's right. Appreciate y'all for supporting us by supporting them. I think you'll really like the products that you get there too. I mean, again, the polos that I've had for years, those collars are still crisp like the day I got them, and super comfortable, super lightweight. Some really cool designs on there. I get compliments on them all the time. So go find all sorts of great, good-looking athletic wear, athleisure wear. I don't know what the proper term is, but it's all there. Rhoback.com. Go ACC20.
Incredibly comfortable.
Do it. All right, Mike. Where do we want to get started here?
Let's start with the most consequential game. Number 8, Miami 39, Cal 38.
Oh, I thought we were going for Bowling Green. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways. Look, Miami got thoroughly outplayed here for like 3 quarters. I fell asleep. Full disclosure. I fell asleep. I was watching this live late last night. Wrapped up my stuff with SI. Got in bed. Had the game on. At that point, it was 38-18. So 3-score lead with really just the fourth quarter to play. And Miami, I felt like, had to pull the rabbit out of a hat. So I did not believe my eyes when I got up to use the restroom at 4 a.m. TV's still on. And my wife's not turning it off. She was sleeping right through it.
So she was watching the game. No.
Yeah, TV's still on, and I look up and I see the bottom line that Miami had completed the comeback. I was like, wait a minute, what? And so then I watched it today. Watched the fourth quarter back. Correct. And my takeaway of the fourth quarter, and we can get into the targeting call that wasn't. And we can talk about the illegal men downfield on the game-winning touchdown pass by Cam Ward. We can talk about all that. That's all fair, and we'll get to it. But my overall takeaway is that Cal ran out of gas. Like, they started to run into an issue in the fourth quarter where they couldn't keep their offense on the field. They had a few punts, and all of them were short drives, if you go back and look at it. And Miami was able to put together some offensive drives and score against a Cal defense that had been pretty good all night. Yeah. Like, they gave Miami some issues offensively. They did a lot of similar stuff to what Virginia Tech did, honestly. I think Cal's got a better defense than Virginia Tech. And they were able to put Miami into some pretty tough spots where Cam Ward had to make a decision quickly, right? Put some pressure on them and rely on your defensive backs to kind of bottle up the skill position guys. And I thought Cal's defense did a really, really good job. And then they ran out of gas. And this is kind of what we saw with Virginia Tech last week. It was the same kind of situation. They just ran out of steam. And the fourth quarter, Cam Ward, once again, second week in a row, was fantastic. He's putting together ridiculous numbers, and he's making up for, periods of play during these games where he is a little bit inefficient, and he's kind of continuously pulling the rabbit out of the hat, and he's been outstanding. He's been really, really good the last couple of weeks. He's figured it out.
Man, he has those moments though. He had a pick six that he threw early in the third quarter.
So bad.
That was the biggest, it looked like he was throwing up like a jackpot ball in 500, the old game we used to play growing up. Like he's running, he's kind of rolling to his right, he's almost to the sideline, and kind of like sidearm just hucks a ball up to the middle of the field, overthrows receiver. He has a defensive back catch it like a punt, and Noel Williams runs it back 40 yards for a touchdown. It was just like, what is this? Like, what? Why did you throw that ball?
I was working on a story, that I had to file, and I looked up and saw the pick, and then I saw the tweet from, I think it was Tom Fornelli from Cover 3, and he was like, I'm still trying to figure out, like, why Cam Ward made that decision. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what that decision was from Cam Ward.
And I mean, he had a receiver out there. He had a receiver out there. There was like 4 defenders around him. No idea. Yeah. Volusia's Orange, one of the worst shows I've ever seen. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Terrible decision.
Yeah. This was interesting to me, and you mentioned, I mean, Cal 100% ran out of gas here. And what's funny is you wonder, like, well, how does that happen? Like, you got such a big lead. You got to realize Cal finishes this game with 12 first downs. They were 2 for 10 on third down on offense. It's not like they were moving the ball particularly well at all. They just hit like 6 home runs in this game, basically, and otherwise could not really move the ball. And so you have all these short drives. Some of them end up in scores, but they're short. So your defense is on the field almost the whole game. Miami ran 86 snaps in this game to Cal's 49.
Yeah.
Like, there's a big discrepancy there. That's a lot of time to be on the field. And it was very much a thing where, you kind of mentioned it, Mike, as you get into the mid-third quarter, and I was texting you, it's like, man, Cal's defense has Miami in an absolute blender. I mean, they're getting after Cam Ward. They just look. Miami's offense looked confused. They looked lethargic, like kind of slow. You definitely start wondering about like body clock stuff. I mean, you figure they're playing this game, and it's what 1:30 on the East Coast, and there's people making jokes about that's the time that Miami usually gets started, anyways, and that whole thing, But like. Again, like Miami couldn't do anything, and then all of a sudden just catches fire kind of late in the third quarter. And I mean, their final 4 drives of the game, touchdown, 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 touchdown. And that's how you come back from being down 35-10, late in the third. So a credit to Miami. And like to me, the targeting thing at the end, there's like a trend, and we saw this last week with the Miami Virginia Tech game. We saw it with the SMU Louisville game. We're seeing it here. I think we saw it another time or two just in the ACC this weekend. And it's like, how is it that we keep having these plays that we go to review, and all of us, you, me, Scott, everyone everyone is all in agreement. Oh yeah, this is what happens. And then the referee comes out after the review and says, actually, something else happened. And we're all like, can somebody explain to me what you're seeing that we're not? Because that looked clear as day, like a targeting call that that's not like the kind of thing that like, oh, well, Cal definitely would have won if they got that call. Well, they might not have. I mean, but they would have gotten a fresh set of downs. That was a third down that basically they were about to, they were going to have to punt. They would have gotten a fresh set of downs. Miami still had 3 timeouts, but like maybe you do find a way to get like one more first down in there somewhere, and maybe you can salt the game away, or at least you're making them use their timeouts, or you're taking more time off the clock. Like, that really was an important call to, how much Miami's backs were going to be up against the wall in that final 2 minutes. And so it really bothered me that it's like, this is, by the letter of the law, it is targeting. And we all kind of agreed in the group chat earlier, 15 years ago, you should have slid, and sorry, that's a hard hit. But nowadays, there's a rule against that. It's supposed to be penalized. Someone explain this to me. I don't get it.
He had just enough of that in there with the shoulder to make it questionable. I think it was targeting, but
how much it takes to get all of Twitter to agree that something is a targeting penalty.
I know.
Nobody wants that in the game, and yet
we still figure it out.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Cal explosive plays thing. They had 4 of them in this game, and 2 of them went for touchdowns. They had a long Jade Knott run, a 66-yard run, and then I think they had a 57-yard touchdown. Let me verify.
Yeah,
57.
Jack Andres.
Yeah, the 57-yard touchdown pass. That was the first score of the game for Cal. And then they had a couple others, right? And it was on the shorter scoring drives where they had like an explosive play. So Cal's second touchdown drive of the game, Mendoza hit Grizzle for the 51-yard pass, right? And that was an explosive. And there was a short touchdown a few plays later. So they hit on multiple explosives. We haven't seen Cal's offense do that all year. This was kind of like a pipe dream Cal performance to play this game close in a high scoring game. I think we talked about this in the preview. If we had said that this was going to be a game that was going to get into the high 70s on the scoreboard in the total, you and I both would have said, well, it's probably Miami by like 2 or 3 scores, and they just let Cal score some early touchdowns, maybe get some garbage time points, that sort of thing. That would have been the path. I wasn't thinking 39-38. Like, Cal is going to win this game 1 time out of 10, probably, and the 1 time was almost on Saturday night. I mean, Cal really had no business, truthfully, being up 3 scores in this game, right? They hit. I'm not sure they've hit 4 explosive plays all season. I'm joking, but I'm kind of not. And then defensively, you get the pick 6, which is something you can do because your defense is really good, but you're gifted a score there, and Miami just had a few breakdowns defensively that were a bit uncharacteristic, I would say, relative to what they've done this year. But they also did it last week against a Virginia Tech offense that is better than what Cal is running out there right now. So it's just something to monitor on the Miami side defensively. The slower starts to the game and the defense just kind of having guys running wide open all over the field. And the Jade Knott touchdown run, we had not filling the lanes appropriately, and then we had some missed tackles. Just some stuff going on in this game for Miami's defense where I'm like, man, I saw a lot of that against Virginia Tech too. But this one leaves me scratching my head because Cal doesn't have the athletes on offense that Virginia Tech has. So it really makes me wonder, like, is this going to be a repeatable thing for Miami to monitor as the season rolls along, where defensively they're going to start to have some issues? And this is a defense I think we thought early in the year was really, really good, but then you adjust for caliber opponent and you're like, okay, like, good win against Florida. Florida's got athletes, but Florida's offense is not great.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of rolling that same performance out against Cal, and Virginia Tech's offense, by the way, when Miami played them last week, Virginia Tech's offense hadn't been playing particularly well. So now it's just kind of like back-to-back games where you kind of leave yourself scratching your head at Miami's defense. But the offense is good. The offense, I think, if it limits its mistakes, definitely has a high ceiling with Cam Ward at quarterback and all the athletes they have. But I have some questions about Miami. Doesn't mean I don't think they're going to be able to get to Charlotte or anything like that, but I do have some questions about whether or not there's a game or two that they could drop and kind of make this race in the ACC a little bit more interesting down the stretch.
I mean, again, I think with what we've seen the last 2 weeks, Miami is not head and shoulders above the conference the way that maybe they kind of looked like they might be the first 2-3 weeks of the year. I mean, if you're coming down to like major officiating decisions in the final 2 minutes of games that kind of impact whether you win, I don't think you're running the gauntlet here and going 8-0. You know, and I again, the offense is really good, but it does have its moments. And Cam Ward is good for one or two, just what the hell kind of throws every game.
Yeah.
And if you can't get that cleaned up, you know, you might run into someone that can find a way to beat you. So, you know, they got a bye week coming up next week, and then they're on the road at Louisville after that. They get, I think the Florida State game is after that as well. So, I mean, you know, kind of some interesting spots coming up for Miami. I'm at this point though, I'm like, I don't think you're running the gauntlet and going 12-0 in the regular season. Like, I think they're going to slip up at least one place. The chat right now is talking about it, and everyone's pretty convinced it's going to be at Syracuse later in the year, which that tracks. So,
That would be about right.
Yeah.
Encouraged by Cal a little bit though.
Yeah.
On offense, encouraged. I don't know how repeatable it is, but I'm encouraged by some of the stuff they did offensively in this game.
Yeah. They had a horrible time running the ball in this game. I mean, the entire offense was basically throwing it, and Fernando Mendoza just like improvising, basically. I mean, it was not a consistent offensive attack, but as mentioned, I mean, you had a few big plays you're able to break, and that kind of made a difference and made this game a close one. So,
we had Chandler Rogers sighting also, which was unexpected but kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to call out was, man, what a scene for Cal at game day Saturday morning.
Unreal, man. Unreal.
Yeah, they did a hell of a job showing out for that, and that's what you get with ACC programs is big showings for college game day, and making it well worth their while to go out there. So shout out to the Bears. That was, what an environment in that game last night. I mean, that stadium was rocking until I think the crowd kind of ran out of steam too late there, which makes sense when, you know, they started 24 hours earlier or whatever.
Pretty much. I mean,
yeah.
They had been drinking for almost a full fiscal year prior to that game. The other thing too is I love they were just drinking. That's true. We're just drinking. Marshawn Lynch made that clear on game day. The signs at game day were spectacular, as is to be expected. My favorite sign was the one that said, "I thought this was a protest." So that was pretty good.
I saw one that was like there was some act from like the early 1800s, and it was like, oh, the such and such act was a mistake. And it was this deep cut because this act was basically the one that they agreed that Florida could become a state. Like, it's like, this is the level of like deep cut humor we're getting from the Cal fan base.
Yeah.
Deep in the history books there. So I didn't even recognize the name of that. I'd never heard of that. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, somebody right for one of Cal's fan sites had a Jaden Ott for highest person sign as well, which is very funny.
That was hilarious.
Yeah,
I saw that. Very good. Miami 39, Cal 38.
Syracuse 44, UNLV 41 in Vegas on Friday night. This game was in overtime. Absolute banger of a game. Back and forth, high scoring. Syracuse ran a million plays here. I got to pull it back up. They ran a million
96
plays.
snaps in this game?
Yeah. McCord threw the ball 63 times. Come on, man.
Yeah. There was definitely some Kobe Bryant Memorial Volume Shooter of the Week stuff here with Kyle McCord. And I realized that like the yards per completion works out to, you know, just south of 9, which is okay, is not terrible, but for a lot of this game it was like 6, and it was like he's thrown 40 passes and they've got like 175 yards through the air, and it was like what like,
yeah,
but yeah, got a little better towards the end.
UNLV's total ignorance to covering Oronde Gadsden is probably why they lost this game. I look back at this and I tuned in live like halfway through the second half, and then I rewatched the first half, just kind of how this went for UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like UNLV did a lot of good stuff towards the end of the first half. I mean, obviously a slow start here. Like Hughes jumps out to have 14-0 lead. Then UNLV goes on that little run in the second quarter, and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, the Rebels are game here. They like settled in, and I thought played really, really well, to the point where there were points in the second half where I'm like, Syracuse is kind of fortunate to still be in this game, is how I felt about it, with the way that UNLV kind of turned things on its head. But I mean, credit to Syracuse, they really stuck with it. I don't know.
We need to talk about Syracuse's special teams.
A mess.
Like, actively cost you 2 touchdowns in this game that you needed overtime to win. But if you don't know what we're talking about, Syracuse in the first half had a punt that basically they're backed up on their own end of the field. They snap the ball to the punter. He catches it. He doesn't even drop it to kick it because he can already tell it's going to get blocked. Like, there's just a free runner coming right at him. So he kind of tries to scoot over to the side and maybe do a rugby thing, and he ends up getting tackled. And so UNLV gets the ball first and goal at the 9 and scores in 2 plays. So that was a mess. And then later in the second half,
Ricky White third, baby.
Syracuse gonna punt, and UNLV blocks it and just falls on it in the end zone for a touchdown. That was also kind of crazy because the ball was at the, basically started at midfield, snapped it to the punter, blocked it. It was like a 40-yard chase for the ball into the end zone. Nobody touched it. And finally UNLV just falls on it in the end zone. So Syracuse special teams basically cost them 2 touchdowns and just straight up not blocking guys right on the punt team. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that will drive any fan, any head coach just absolutely nuts. Like, this is the simple stuff to get right. And I remember I watched the first one, and it's very clear that somebody's missing a block. It's either one of the protectors or it's the last guy in the line. It's like, if you don't know who to block, that's a huge problem. That's going to come back and bite you at some point. It almost did in this game.
Yeah, the issue for Syracuse here too, right? So you get the punt blocked, and the game is now tied, and then you go on and embark on a very long drive offensively, and a 13-play drive, and you're in the UNLV red zone, and then McCord throws a pivotal interception.
It's a horrendous interception too.
So bad. And then UNLV goes down and scores. So now you go from being up 7, punting, right, thinking that you're going to get your defense back out on the field. A defense to that point in the game had played okay, right? Had not played that bad. And you think you're going to get your defense back out on the field with a 7-point lead. Instead, the game is tied, and then you go down the field, and you look like you're about to take the lead again, and you throw a brutal red zone interception, and UNLV marches right up the field and scores again. It was a huge swing. It was, I think, just conservatively, like a 21-point swing there. Yeah. So it's tough, right? It's tough, and I thought Syracuse was pretty fortunate given the special teams issues that they had in this game, because you highlighted the play in the first half, but then having the punt block and then having the interception in the red zone and giving up 7 more points there to UNLV. That's a really tough 3-possession swing there in the middle of the second half. So,
yeah, that interception was. I think that was where I tweeted out, like, to be fair, I've thrown that interception on College Football 25 more times than I care to count. Like, he basically had a receiver running an out route, and it was like McCord decided he was going to throw that ball before the ball was snapped.
Yep.
And it just, the angle wasn't there, and the defender just undercut it. And it's one of those things. Like, you would hope that a super senior like that, like, and a guy who's throwing 60 passes in this game, you got to be a little better than that, a little smarter than that. So, this is a wild game. I mean, a really good win for Syracuse. Again, like, on the road, weird spot. UNLV, a good opponent. Barry Odom and that defense, again, at times looked like they had Syracuse really confused and struggling to move the ball at times. So, I mean, this is a tough spot, and you loved going out there and getting the win. And again, there was officiating stuff here, but it seems like that's becoming a theme in almost every game. So, not too. I don't want to take away from Syracuse and the win on that, but it was It was impactful. And especially, it kind of went both ways too. Like,
no, it did. I mean, the chop block on Syracuse was a tough call, but then you get into overtime, right? And UNLV kicks the field goal on the first possession, and they take the 3-point lead. And then UNLV goes and plays defense, and it looks like they're going to get off the field on third down. And they call a patsy roughing the passer penalty.
it was pretty weak.
Pretty weak. Like, we see that play a million times, and it's flagged maybe once or twice every Saturday. It was a for that spot, I thought it was a very soft roughing the passer call. Yeah. And of course that gave Syracuse first and goal, which, we know what happened from there.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to lose if you're UNLV. For as well as they played. And by the way, they could not tackle the Quinn Allen in the second half really at all. I mean, he had a really hard time getting going, but he had some big time runs in the second half, like really tough, like 3, 4, 5 yard runs. And then the overtime, especially, I mean, you look at the touchdown run, it's just like wasn't going to happen. They just weren't going to tackle him. So, tough running there. You got to tip your cap, but yeah, nice little, I don't want to call it a bailout call, but it felt that way a little bit, just given it was third down. UNLV's getting off the field. Looks like Syracuse is going to have to kick a field goal. This game could have been real interesting in the second overtime with Syracuse possessing the ball first, given what we were seeing out of that UNLV defense in the first overtime.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's tough. Tough for UNLV.
The other thing I'm monitoring here with Syracuse is, again, we talk about the run-pass balance. Syracuse struggled to run the ball with consistency here. They end up racking up some yards on a number of attempts, but like there were just a small chunk of plays that seemed like they represented a large chunk of those yards. And otherwise, I mean, you mentioned, I mean, they struggled tackling LaQuinn Allen late in this game, but for a lot of this game, Syracuse did not have any sort of organized drop back, just hand the ball off run game that was getting them a whole lot of anything. So some of this might just be throwing it that much by, from a sake of necessity. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all I got here.
Fun game. This went pretty much how we thought. We thought this was going to be a crazy game. It was. So
yeah, this is wild. Fun. Everyone has fun in Vegas, right?
Friday, well, depends on who you ask, but Friday nights have been crazy this year in college football. There have been some bangers on Friday nights. Some of the better games of the season have been on Friday nights this year. So
they sure have. Syracuse 44, UNLV 41 in overtime.
SMU 34, Louisville 27. I mentioned this in the rapid reaction. I thought Louisville got outplayed here. And they scratch and claw their way back into this game, but and they were never really out of it. But I thought that they got outplayed here. They were trailing by 2 scores at halftime. SMU, for basically the entirety of this game, got whatever they wanted offensively. That's the biggest red flag if I'm a Louisville fan. The defense looking a bit shoddy is what I would say. Kevin Jennings was great here. Running, throwing. I mentioned in the rapid reaction, he had 391 all-purpose yards here. He was really, really good, and Louisville just did not have answers to the test there. They just could not figure it out, and it was throughout the game. It was just right when you thought Louisville was going to get a stop, they couldn't, and they strung together in the middle of the second half, especially third quarter. They strung together some stops that kept them in it. SMU missed a field goal, which that was a really important swing point in the game. SMU also, I mean, we could talk about the officiating again. Looked like SMU had fumbled and Louisville had recovered it, and they overturned it and said SMU got to keep it, and SMU scores their late touchdown.
Yeah.
So
again, another replay where we're all like, no, like, the ball is almost certainly it was called a fumble on the field. Louisville recovers it at like the 5-yard line. The replay shows the ball is almost certainly out before, the shin hits the ground. If nothing else, there's really not a clear look that shows he was definitely down before the ball came out.
Yeah.
And then the official comes out and says, nope, yep, he was down. Like, they overturn the fumble call.
Yeah.
For reasons that nobody can figure out. why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
Some of the Louisville fan in me is like mad about this, but some of this is just like on principle. Like, you're insulting my intelligence, telling me that I'm not seeing something that I'm obviously seeing. Like, what are you seeing that I'm not? Make it make sense.
Yeah, that was tough.
Rant over.
Do we want to talk about the Louisville offensive play calling in, I guess it was late third quarter, early fourth quarter when they went for it? You and I had a couple different text message exchanges here, both on that late fumble overturn, which you and I were like, wow, can't believe they overturned it. And then on this play here, late third quarter, early fourth, where we got a tie ball game. It's 27 up, and Louisville is going for it deep in SMU territory. And came away with absolutely nothing. And Joey, I think your text to me was, like the decision, hated the play call, which I agreed with.
Yeah, I mean, they had 3rd and 1 at the SMU 19-yard line, so right on the edge of the red zone, basically. They go Don Chaney up the middle, stuffed, no gain. And at that point, I'm thinking, yeah, like I would go for this. And they did, and that's fine. But when your play call is basically, let's just do the exact same thing that we just did and failed, there's something about the definition of insanity here that, you know, probably applies. But like, can we not be more creative than just hand it off up the middle? Like, if it was all just, well, I needed my offensive lineman to get a push. Well, you needed him to get a push on the last play too. Like, try something else. Can we run outside zone? Can we have an RPO? Can we do something to try to give you another option? Because clearly it didn't work last time. Why would it work this time?
If they got a different defensive look, I would have been like, oh, okay. They got the same exact defensive look. It was the same defense. I
don't know. Like, just what? That was bizarre to me. And at that point, it's like, there is a piece of me, and I know that the way this game was going, I mean, there was a lot of points, and it didn't seem like a field goal was going to win it. But like, there's a little bit of me of like, I understand that it's like the analytics say go for it here, but like, it's a tie game in the fourth quarter, and you're in field goal range. Like, I would at least consider kicking that ball, right? And give yourself a chance at having the lead and playing with the lead, but. Yeah, and then, you know, you go down towards the end of the game, and you had to have it, and Tyler Shuck throws an interception on basically the final snap that Louisville's offense takes. That was more of just a 4th down and long, you know, kind of just jump ball sort of thing. And I don't know. There was just I feel like we're continuing to see some sloppiness and some mental mistakes and some iffiness stuff from Louisville that we didn't see last year nearly as much. And I don't think I'm used to seeing from a Jeff Brom team in a lot of cases. And it makes me wonder, Mike, is this just sort of a factor of some of these teams that are, you know, semi-heavily reliant on transfers? This is just going to happen, that you've got guys that are a little less predictable, a little less comfortable in the system, and you just don't always know what you're going to get. And, you start wondering, like, why did you do this when you did it? Well, you know, I don't know. That's something I was thinking about, wondering about, and trying to make sense of it. You know, why are we seeing this from this Louisville team, this Jeff Brom team?
Some of it's also scheduling related.
Probably.
Like, you look at Florida State's schedule last year, like, yeah, they beat LSU off the jump. That was a good win. But like, you look at Florida State's schedule last year, and a big reason why they were left out of the playoff, right? Not only the Jordan Travis thing was like the driver, but you were kind of searching for the quality wins. You know, like for seeding purposes and all that, you were searching for the quality wins, and there weren't a lot of them. And you can kind of say the same about Florida State's opponent in last year's ACC title game, Louisville. You were kind of searching for the quality wins. And now Louisville's got a little bit tougher schedule this year, and I don't want to like sound the alarms. They're 3-2, and Saturday was a tough game. And SMU, to their credit, first year in the ACC, they've looked good. They've played well. Like they're looking like a conference title contending team, like or at least like to get there. not sure they're as good as Miami or Clemson, but they look like they're good enough to get there. But I mean, you look at Louisville's schedule, and their losses are to Notre Dame, and then a team that we think is pretty good in SMU. So the two teams you've played, the two toughest teams on your schedule so far, you've lost both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you still got Miami, and you still got Clemson. There are some more losses out there potentially for Louisville here.
Oh, yeah.
And with the way they're playing, it's not just like the two tough teams left on the schedule. There are some teams that could step up and beat you. You still got Pitt at the end of the year. Second to last game. Of course, before you play your out-of-conference game at Kentucky. But, like, Kentucky is... I don't know if feisty is the right word, but they've been real annoying to play this year. I'm not sure they're necessarily good, but I think they're pretty annoying. And then Pittsburgh, I think, might be good. We'll get to Pitt in a few minutes. So, yeah man, I got some questions about where Louisville's going here, and I think they really got to clean up. They got to clean up some special team stuff. They got to clean up some red zone stuff because I know the play at the end was really just a heave. You're down 7. It's 4th and 17. I know you're just hucking it and hoping for the best. But that goes down as a red zone gaffe as well, in terms of like you were 0 for 2 in the red zone. You went for it on the SMU 19 and didn't get it, and then you had 4th and 17 at the SMU 19 and didn't get it. Yeah. So it's like you had some opportunities in the red zone in this game that you weren't able to get any points off of. In a game you lose by 7, that ends up being pretty consequential.
Yep. One other thing I want to mention here, by the way. We do remember that Ashton Gelati led the ACC in sacks last year with 11. We're through 5 games. He's got 1 this year.
Schedule.
Yeah. I wonder a little bit. Like, again, something's not right here with Louisville, and I don't know what it is. And keep in mind, I mean, they beat Georgia Tech in a game where they only scored 17 on offense, and we talked about there was some sloppiness and penalties, and
that's when it started.
Yeah, it's like this is 3 weeks in a row that like it's like they can't get it fixed, and that's some of these things are like unforced, right? Like it doesn't matter who they're playing or who the strength is or what the strength of schedule is. Like you just got to figure it out, and it just seems like they can't. So I don't know, something I'm going to keep an eye on, and definitely kind of like downgrading Louisville in my mind right now of what I expect from them on a weekly basis.
SMU 5-1. They're now 2-0 in league play.
Yeah, I think
there's
SMU's figuring some stuff out.
Not only do I think they're figuring some stuff out, but the schedule is ripe for the taking.
About to get forgiving, yeah.
I don't think that necessarily means they run the table or anything like that, because losses can find you in this league. And I know they lost by 3 to BYU, but SMU is quietly putting together a nice little season here. And I know their schedule hasn't been the toughest, and maybe they're the Louisville of this year for the ACC. But you travel to Stanford after a bye week, travel to Duke. I think we'd agree both those are pretty winnable. Home against Pittsburgh, tougher game, but you get it at home. Home against BC, looks winnable. At UVA, Virginia's playing some good football, but SMU's got enough talent there. And then home against Cal in the finale. I'd be surprised. I mean, if you set the losses, right, you set the loss total to over under 1.5. I don't know that I'd necessarily take the over. Like, are they losing 2 games the rest of the year here?
I'd take the over. It's the ACC. Like you said, losses will find you. Like
Pitt and someone else, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, again, Stanford, that's a long road trip. Then the next week you're at Duke, which, coming from Dallas, not a short road trip. And, going to Charlottesville late in the year, like I could see that. Again, I think some of these road games get a little treacherous, and I wonder a little bit about that home game against Pitt. I don't know what the total is going to be in that game, but take the over. So, we'll see. We'll see about SMU, but definitely, I mean, record-wise, I think they're going to finish up better than I was anticipating they would coming into the year. But to your point, Mike, I mean, we're talking about this Louisville team being flawed. I think this is the best team they've played so far, and might be the best team they play the rest of the way other than, like, Pitt, So I don't know. I think there's losable spots. Boston College is maybe a losable game as well. But, yeah, SMU, I think, going to get away with it this year in the ACC to some degree, it feels like. Which, welcome to the conference.
Yeah.
Teams get away with it sometimes.
SMU Notre Dame on a neutral field to find out who Louisville's best loss would be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. SMU 34, Louisville 27.
Clemson 29, Florida State 13. We can keep this kind of quick.
Mm-hmm.
I come away from this game not really too concerned about Clemson. I think they were due to have like an offensive game where they just like weren't really, let's just say, paying attention. Yeah. This felt like a not finishing drives thing. Credit to Florida State's defense. Yeah. You mentioned this in the rapid react, like kept playing. Mm-hmm. But I thought Clemson's offense was okay. I mean, Maffa ran for 154. Klubnik, I thought, looked fine for the most part. It was just like could not finish drives in the red zone. It was crazy. It was crazy watching it because I was watching intently. Number one, I was on with SI for the night slate, and I had it in a quad box, and I had Clemson minus 14.5. So I was paying close attention to how this was going, and was feeling pretty good, Joey. To your point, when they went up 14-0 early, I was like, yeah, Florida State's going to pack this thing in, and then they just didn't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have much to say about Brock Glenn. I think there's some work to do there, and it's clear why Norvell hasn't gone away from DJ. But, the offense I thought looked a bit better at times last night for Florida State. So maybe, and I know DJ might be out the rest of the year. That was a report that came out yesterday too. Surgery on his hand, and he's going to miss at least a significant amount of time.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is probably going to be Brock Glenn's show the rest of the way anyway, which might be okay for Florida State. I thought they had some moments offensively where it was like, okay, all right, that was a nice little play. But I mean, Clemson was just far too strong defensively. And then offensively, I think that you play this game again, there's a good chance Clemson scores 40. So
yeah,
I don't really come away from this game feeling like I learned much about either team. It just kind of went about how I thought.
Yeah. Yep.
So
can we circle back real quick to a bit from the preview?
Yeah, sure.
Was there a moment in this game where you were watching Brock Glenn play quarterback for Florida State and you thought to yourself, man, this is so much worse than DJU. They've got to get him back in there.
Nope.
I don't understand what the thought was on. We have got to keep him in there and keep running this whole thing out because, again, like, clearly this can't be any worse than that was.
Money.
And I don't think it was. So
money.
Yeah.
Money's why.
Yeah.
Money is why.
Clemson doubles up Florida State in yardage here. It was an even 250 for Florida State and an even 500 for Clemson, which is kind of
500 yards
40.
And 29 points.
29
they
points,
screwed around. They screwed around here. Like this was the screw around game of the week for Clemson. Like
a lot of it just feels like Clemson didn't feel threatened here, though. Like it was more just like we just need to not screw up. And that's where you kind of play it a little conservative and you don't do anything too crazy. You don't go for any fourth downs or anything like that. And just kind of keep it moving and get on out of there and try to stay healthy. And that's exactly what happened, I think.
Can I bring something on the screen real quick?
Please do.
And Dennis, 133. Brock Glenn's mobility really helps compared to DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring that because I agree with that. But the one thing I want to bring up is that it's not that DJ isn't mobile. It's that he's not like a willing runner. Like when he can run, he just doesn't. Like there's hesitation. Like he's afraid to get hit. And I don't know if that's it for sure, but it feels that way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's kind of hesitates before taking off. Brock Glenn does not, and I think that's where kind of separates himself. So I just thought it was a good point.
Yeah, I think DJU is also. How would I describe this? He's maybe a little bit more of like a pickup truck than a sports car. You know, he's not as agile. He doesn't accelerate as quickly. He's got good top speed, and he can certainly, he's kind of a long strider of sorts, but I think Brock Glenn a little quicker feet and a little bit more shifty, and I think that's what we're seeing in the run game for Florida State is that he's able to make guys miss in space a little bit and a little bit more shifty. So definitely a stylistic benefit there, I think, for what we've seen from Florida State.
Yeah, I think so too. Clemson did. You said the thing about Clemson not really feeling threatened. When it was 17-0, the game was over. That's how I felt. I didn't think Florida State was going to be able to score 17. Lo and behold, they didn't.
Yeah, definitely not.
So,
anything else here?
No.
Clemson 29, Florida State 13.
Virginia 24, Boston College 14. I have some questions about Boston College.
Yeah.
They're starting to build a little bit, starting to percolate. So BC had a 14-6 lead here going into halftime, and then it remained that way for a while, like into the fourth quarter. There was no scoring at all in the third quarter. And it was just a game. There were 4 nooners yesterday, as you all know, because you're all ACC sickos like Joey and I. There were 4 nooners.
And we had a perfect ACC quad box going, right?
Of course not, because YouTube TV doesn't allow that. So
why would you? Yeah.
Why would you? So we were just monitoring, right? My favorite is you can build your own multi-view now on YouTube TV, but it doesn't really make a difference because you just end up with the same options that you had before because there are restrictions in what you can add. And so it's not really a build your own multi-view. It's just making the user feel like they have that opportunity. So thanks for nothing, YouTube TV. We're just getting the same options that we had before, but they're trying to obviously respond to the complaints on social media about it. Whatever. It's you didn't fix anything with this. You just tried to appease the mob, and you only made it more mad. Anyway, this was a game. So it was 14-6, and I'm like, all right, BC's like keeping UVA at bay. Let me monitor everything else in the noon window. Like, let's check out this NC State Wake game that's getting a little out of control. Let's keep an eye on UNC and Pitt. Like, that's the one I had my eye on most closely in the noon window. I'm just kind of monitoring this BC game. And then all of a sudden, Boston College just lets UVA back into the game. Horrendous decision by Thomas Castellanos. Like, what are you doing, dude? Awful. And BC just they have these things that they do, and they did this against Western Kentucky, where they just let teams hang around. Yeah. They do it, and it bit him in the ass on Saturday. It finally bit him in the ass. And they've been kind of doing this dance. And I don't know. I'm starting to think that BC is a little bit fortunate to be 4-2. Just thinking about how the ending to the Michigan State game went, thinking about how that Missouri game went, where we're like, all right, like BC had some missed opportunities against Missouri. That was kind of the takeaway. But now I watched Missouri play yesterday against A&M, and I'm like, yeah, this Missouri team might actually be ass. Like, Missouri was in overtime against Vanderbilt, and that looks obviously a lot better now after what Vanderbilt did yesterday. But now I'm starting to rethink, like, narratives about BC. I still think they're well coached. I think O'Brien's a good coach, and I'm not backing off of that. I still think they're well coached. I just think that there are some flaws here that are coming to the surface that I think were present before the year started, that I thought O'Brien had kind of covered up with his coaching, that are still definitely there, specifically with like decision making from Castellanos, and that play yesterday was an absolute killer. So I don't know. I have some concerns about BC. On the flip side, Virginia really good, man. They just stuck with it, and then made some plays late. And, you know, a defensive score in a game that was going to be this close is obviously something that you need. So, yeah, really good for Virginia here.
Yeah. No, huge win for Virginia. They needed this real bad, and good on them for it. And Dennis 133 brings up something that I was kind of wanting to get into here for a second.
Yep.
We realized Boston College having some issues running the ball this year. And to end Dennis's point, like, that is not the formula that we've been seeing from Boston College for years and years. Like, when this program has done well, it is based on the run game. And this is now the 4th straight game that we have seen Boston College go for under 4 yards a carry across the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, and two of them, they've been under 2.5 yards a carry. Like, it's bad. And obviously that's not sack adjusted. And neither is this stat. Thomas Castellanos, 10 carries for -9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't going to win you the game for Boston College. So
No.
you got to figure something out there, or, fix the identity. We laughed earlier about the post-game press conference from Bill O'Brien. And in a way it was funny, but there was also a piece of me that it was reminiscent of his time with the Texans here in Houston, where it seemed like there was some stuff that he did that almost was like kind of trying to intimidate the media. He was almost trying to do like the college coach controls the media message thing, except as an NFL coach, which plays very differently and very poorly, and really turned a lot of the local media off. Was like him acting like the smartest guy in the room all the time and talking down to people and like that whole thing. So, maybe he was just frustrated and fired up by the loss, but that can't be a weekly occurrence if you're Bill O'Brien. And I think we joked before, I mean, the Boston media is probably more willing to deal in direct communications than any media that I'm used to and familiar with. Like, I just think of that part of the country, and, direct communication sounds like kind of a piece of it, but I wonder how that plays and locally. And I'd be curious to ask Dan. I mean, Dan asked the second question of the press conference and got shot down like immediately. And it was like,
the abrasiveness towards an in-house reporter is what's got me like, man, that's interesting, because you guys will remember Dan Rubin works for Boston College. He writes for the Athletic site. Yeah.
So
had my attention for sure with the way O'Brien handled that. We retweeted it from the pod account. It's out there. Go find it. We don't need to get into all that. It's really just semantics at this point. I think O'Brien was pretty frustrated. On a funnier note, I think Dan Rubin, some of that former New England Patriots offensive coordinator shine for Bill O'Brien probably wore off a little bit with Dan Rubin after that one.
Yeah.
But
That's
BC,
exactly right.
BC's lack of running the ball. Also, UVA is starting to stop the run. Like, they've been pretty good against the run this year, which I bring up because there are some teams remaining on UVA's schedule that they, again, really tough schedule here. The last 6 games of the year for Virginia.
I was going to say, I'm looking at it now, and I was like, I think Virginia's going bowling, and then I looked.
Maybe not.
At 4-1, they might not be going bowling.
This is like the
murderer's row.
It's like the Rutgers Big Ten schedule last year. It was like, congrats on your 5-0 start. Oh my God! Look at
because
the last
we're
7
talking
games.
about it. Louisville at Clemson, North Carolina at Pitt, at Notre Dame, SMU at Virginia Tech to close the year. So you're going to need to win against North Carolina at home, and then you're probably going to need to upset somebody if you're going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah.
Which
the Tech game's in Blacksburg. You never win there, so maybe you try to pluck that one off for the first time in forever. SMU, we just talked about that. Maybe there. Pitt, maybe.
they're going to be like driving to tie or win the game against Notre Dame in South Bend with like 4 minutes left in that game, right?
It is in their nature.
That it's in everybody involved's nature for that game to be way closer than it has any business being.
Virginia has played Notre Dame tight before, as we know. Shout outs to Surrender Cobra, like the Surrender Cobra,
the original meme on
the original meme. Right. Yeah, that was the Will Fuller late touchdown.
That's right.
That was Deshaun Kaiser to Will Fuller when both of them were still like real young.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what was that? 15, 14? That was like 10 years ago.
It's a while ago. Yeah,
predates this podcast.
Ago. Yes.
Virginia 24, Boston College 14.
Good for you, Virginia.
Yeah, good on Virginia. And I mean, what a way to hold it together there in a game where, again, Boston College had the lead for the first 3 quarters, basically, and Virginia just hung around and got it done.
BC's on bye. They play Virginia Tech next in Blacksburg on a Thursday night, about a week and a half.
Man. BC needs that bye, too, by the way, right now.
Yeah, they do. Where to? Where do you want to go now?
Should we go to Atlanta?
Let's do it.
Georgia Tech 24, Duke 14. Again, like Weird game. Georgia Tech came out of the bye and was able to run the ball better than they have the last couple games. I think they fixed some things. Our friend Kelly Quinlan, he had his own live stream tonight. Go find him, Jackets Online on YouTube. He mentioned Jamal Haynes got hurt in like the first scrimmage of fall camp, basically, and has just looked hampered. He looked right in this game. He goes 19 carries for 128 yards. Had a lot more spring in his step than we've been seeing so far, so that was good. Um, Again, this was a game where like the Tech defense really kind of smothered Duke. You had like almost 150-yard advantage in this game. Tech held on to the ball for almost 40 minutes of this game. I mean, it felt dominant for a game that Tech was losing going into the fourth quarter. So it's like I just kind of strange how that all sort of played out. Another kind of low possession game here, but credit to Georgia Tech. They got it done and got some margin there towards the end. Duke misses a late field goal that would have made it a one-score game and would have gotten them the cover for what that's worth. But ultimately, they miss it. They pushed it right, and Georgia Tech gets out of there with a win. So I thought there was a funny moment in the locker room afterwards. They had Brent Key talking to the team, and he tells them, "Hey, like this is a big deal, guys. Like there's a reason that they're 5-0. Sorry, 5-1, and got a big raise out of that." So, anyways, Duke's offense really again struggled in this game. There's a real lack of consistency, and they scored on a couple of basically two of the only drives that they were really able to sustain any sort of movement success on. One of them was only a 50-yard drive. So yeah, I mean, Duke found a way to hang around in this game, but I think you saw why Georgia Tech was favored by more than a touchdown here. Is Tech was just kind of the better team for most of this game and struggled to convert it into points at times, but ultimately the better team won out here.
Duke should never have really had the lead here. Samir Hagens had the 65-yard touchdown catch late in the third quarter, and for an offense that had 279 yards all night, having 65 of them on one play kind of tells the full story.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech outgained Duke like it was like a 3-1 advantage at halftime. It was like I forget what it was, like 270 to 78 or something like that. It was something absurd.
Duke had, I think I remember seeing Duke had like 75 yards of offense in the first half. Like an absurdly low total.
Yeah, for a game that was 10-7. Odd game. Like odd game. I felt like Georgia Tech was the better team. I also felt like late in the third quarter, I was like, Georgia Tech better like finish a drive here.
Like do something. Yeah.
Like actually do something. Like I didn't come away from this. Your Jamal Haynes point is really important because I thought, right after the Samir Hagens touchdown, like Haynes broke off a couple of really big runs on that subsequent drive. They scored a touchdown on to regain the lead. And I had the same thought, and Malik Rutherford had some big catches. I came away from this and I was like, all right, I feel like Georgia Tech is starting to like out-athlete Duke.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like. But it took Georgia Tech going down in this game for that to happen. I just wasn't. I think Haynes is how, like, I didn't know Haynes wasn't healthy, but Haynes looked the best he's looked all year, I thought, in this game. And Rutherford was good and really good in the second half. I just felt like it was just going through the motions and playing with your food and just
a little bit, yeah.
I felt like they were the better team the entire game. It wasn't that. I was just like, if they don't like do something, are they going to lose this game? Because then I would have come away like, man, I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I thought they were the better team for like 52 minutes, and they found a way to lose. That's how I would have come away from this. So, I mean, credit to Georgia Tech for tightening things up late, and then once they pulled away, that was it. A missed field goal and an interception on the final two drives of the game for Duke. Not great. Obviously, the interception is kind of inconsequential. You're down 10 really late in the game. So it's like,
I think there were like 30 seconds left. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. It didn't really affect anything. But Malik Murphy didn't have a ton of help offensively. That's been a trend. That's why, like, when we were talking about Duke being 5-0, I'm like, yeah, they're 5-0, but I'm not sure they're very good. Because they can't score. Like their defense, I think, is pretty decent. They were on the field a ton in this game, a ton. And so Georgia Tech had a lot of yards. I thought Duke made them work for it, especially in the first half. And then I thought the dam kind of broke late, which has been a theme this week for defenses that have been on the field a ton. It's been getting to the fourth quarter, and now that offense that's been on the field most of the game is starting to get some more success.
Again, Georgia Tech, like 80 snaps in this game, 39 minutes of possession. I want to give Duke's defense credit here.
Yeah.
I do think Duke's defense look good. They look well coached, and I'm honestly kind of more impressed with this Duke defense than I was with a lot of Manny's defenses at Miami. Like this defense is not like wildly talented in any way, shape, or form, but they find ways to really try to mess up what the opposing offense is doing. And so I thought there was a piece of that Georgia Tech's offense was struggling a little bit to navigate Duke's defense and some of the aggression and some of the things that they were doing. So credit to them and credit to that coaching staff for making it tough for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
But get out with a win.
Yep. Survive in advance. Georgia Tech 4-2. They are headed to Chapel Hill next weekend. And so you got like
go wrong there.
Little mini hate week here, I think, at least on the Georgia Tech side. Like, and it's really not at the entire UNC team or fan base or anything like that. It's really just one man in the building that Georgia Tech can't wait to see on Saturday. So
yeah,
find out how that goes.
Don't lose that one.
Yeah. I want to mention this as well. And Dennis, Buster Faulkner needs to start expanding things. Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator. It does feel like it's gotten a little bit reductive at times this year, like much more so than it was at times last year. So I don't know if there's just some things that worked better last year that they don't want to do this year because they, new linemen or new personnel, something like. But it definitely feels like there was more creativity, and I was more excited about some of the things that they were doing on offense last year, just schematically. So it was nice. There were a couple of short yardage conversions last night that were more creative than what we've been seeing. So that was a good sign to me, at least.
I'm going through this with Virginia Tech fans. So the one thing I just want to mention about Buster Faulkner is not this next specific point, because I'm not sure that's the case with Tyler Bowen, but for this specific point, I think a lot of teams would really like to have Buster Faulkner. So I'd just be careful before running him out of the building. Second of all, I think a healthy Jamal Haynes will go a long way.
Yeah.
I'd let that. I'd let this. I'd just press pause and let's just see how the rest of the year pans out. You might be right. Yeah, not you, Joey, in particular, but in general, the Georgia Tech fan base might be right. Maybe there is some schematic stuff that's a problem. But I would just hold your horses a little bit and let's just see what healthy Jamal Haynes brings, because this is an offense that relies heavily on the running game, and not just the running game with Haynes King at quarterback, but with a running back like Jamal Haynes giving him the ball a ton, and he hasn't really been himself this year. So let's just see how that looks. If he starts putting together 100-plus yard rushing games consistently, I think there will be a lot less stuff to be mad about schematically, because you'll be doing a bit better on early downs, which, to Georgia Tech's credit, I thought they did better in the second half last night, but they're still struggling on like early down stuff this year. It's been like every time I watch a Georgia Tech game, I'm like, why are they in third and long again?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like some weird stuff going on. So I think a healthy Haynes will help that out.
Yep. Yeah, that's the hope. It's interesting because, like we're complaining about the offense and kind of have for the better part of a month now, and yet you look at a lot of the advanced metrics, this is still like a top 25-ish offense in the country. And so it's at times it looks rough, but at the end of the day, like by and large, they're getting results and they're scoring points and that kind of thing. So,
they're hitting explosives. They'll be all right.
It's not going to be perfect. That's fine.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech 24, Duke 14. Mike, this preview recap brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. They got t-shirts, they got sweatshirts, they got hoodies, something for men, women, children, something for babies, something for the whole family, anyone in your life that is a Georgia Tech fan. They need something from Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. I'm wearing this Ramblin' Rex shirt. It's one of the new offerings from there. It's a performance shirt. It's super light, super comfortable. You can see the official Tech gold. It's official word marks on there, official logos. It is all officially licensed. It is really wonderful. Cannot say enough good things about them. Weather's about to start cooling off. You're going to need a hoodie to wear to one of the games. Go get the Coach hoodie. I love it. Is so soft. It looks so good. It is so comfortable. So you will love yours. I love mine. Section103.com, promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. Go check out the NIL stuff there too, by the way, and check out things for the basketball team, baseball team. We got a lot of other sports in motion here, and all good things at Section103.com supporting all those teams. So one more time, promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support.
3 games left. Pittsburgh 34, North Carolina 24. Carolina hung around here for a while.
They did, but there was never really a point where I was like, I think Pitt's in trouble. Like I mean, it was tied going to the fourth quarter, so it's not like I thought that Pitt was like really in the driver's seat, but I felt like I trusted Pitt to get it done more so than I trust North Carolina right now.
And when it was money time, guess who delivered?
Your boy Eli Holstein.
That's correct.
3 touchdowns through the air, 1 by land.
1 by land. That's correct. Eli Holstein had a touchdown run to start the fourth quarter. UNC turned it over on downs, and Pitt went right up the field and kicked a field goal. And then you know what UNC did, Joey? They turned it over on downs again, and that was the ball game.
Downs again.
Pitt's defense finally just figured it out. They were just kind of leaking. Pitt's defense was leaking oil this entire game. There were a couple of red zone plays where I was like, man, I wonder what Pitt's defense was doing on that one. Specifically, that one Jacoby Criswell touchdown that he threw in the second half right over the middle. The tight end was just like wide open in the back of the end zone. I'm like, what's going on here? What's Pitt's defense doing? So that was just kind of a head-scratching performance by Pitt's defense. But I will say, Eli Holstein's the truth. He's like,
after that pretty bad pick six he threw in the first quarter. Yes,
the pick six was bad. Pick six notwithstanding. I mean, that was probably his worst throw all year in his defense, right? I'm hard-pressed to...
He's got a little bit of that Cam Ward in him of 90% good, 10% what the hell is that? Like,
right. But, Joey, one thing I want to note, he's also a freshman, you know?
True.
He's also a freshman. So...
True.
Yeah. He's been really good, man. He's been really good. I think... Pitt's got themselves a quarterback. They got themselves an offense. Things are going really well. Pat Narduzzi hates it so much. I know he does because he hates playing offense, but you've found yourself a coordinator. You found yourself a quarterback. And yeah, Pitt was 0-7 in Chapel Hill. We did not mention that on the preview.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know that. And
yeah,
again, the way this series has gone and the way this game started, it was like, oh boy, here we go again. Another just like wacky back and forth game between these two teams. And it kind of was for a lot of it. And then again, Pitt just kind of owned it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely notable to me that Carolina comes away with 24 points in a game where they got a defensive score. So this offense is less than consistent, less than smooth, I would say. And I mean, I think Jacoby Criswell probably their best option at quarterback at this point, but still very much a flawed option at that. So I don't know, man. Like I'm feeling pretty good about my North Carolina miss a bowl game take. And I look at the schedule down the stretch, and I understand that they're not really playing a whole lot of anyone else who's like really definitely good, but I feel like North Carolina might be closer to really definitely bad than any of those teams are to really definitely good. So,
Yeah.
I absolutely think they could lose 4 of their final 6.
It's weird, man. You can also look at it the other way and say, well, they were tied with Pitt going into the fourth quarter, and they blew a 3-touchdown lead against Duke, and maybe James Madison was the aberration. But I am not going to be that guy because I don't think they're very good either.
Man, I saw that Duke performance against Georgia Tech's defense, and like you blew a 3-touchdown lead to that offense. Yikes.
Joey, I will mention, with everything you've been talking about North Carolina this year, you better hope to God that Georgia Tech does not lose to them in Chapel Hill next week. Because, Joey, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I will never let you live that down, buddy.
Mike, you do have a dog in the fight. A CW underdog in the fight.
Oh, no. Not only a CW underdog, Joey. A CW underdog in a nooner.
A CW home underdog in a nooner.
In a nooner.
We're so cooked, man. This is going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad. I can't wait. I'm excited.
And the early line here is Georgia Tech by 6-ish.
It was like 5.5, 6. Yeah, depending on when and where. But anyways.
Ooh, that might be a spicy one. We'll see where we're at when we preview it later this week. That might be a spicy one to take a look at. A little Jeff Collins revenge game.
Georgia Tech revenge game. Anyways,
yeah, I know. Somebody's revenge game.
The only comforting thing is that we're sitting here talking about this purely on betting principles and not on like actual. North Carolina might be better than Georgia Tech
for now.
Principles. Like it's.
Oh no! I don't think that. The other thing here though that's semi notable for me, Carolina did not quit on Mac Brown this week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no quit in this game. They were trying to win this thing.
Yeah. No, they were.
So,
credit to them for sure. I mean, and that's a big deal. Like if they are willing to quit at this point in the season, like this would go downhill in a hurry. But if they keep playing, I mean, you can find ways to win some games in this league and on this schedule. So keeping that in mind.
I don't know if they keep playing kind of like they did against Pittsburgh. I won't say they won't miss a bowl game, but I think they'll be in that 5-6 win range, given who they got left. I mean, there's some games out there where if you play like you did for most of this game on Saturday and play like you did, quite honestly, how you played most of the game against Duke 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
There's still some wins out there if you don't quit.
Yeah, for sure. Pitt 34, North Carolina 24. 2 more, Mike.
Yeah, Wake Forest 34, NC State 30. So, weird one here. I texted you at one point in the second half where I said, NC State's gaining some separation. And that's when CJ Bailey threw a 22-yard touchdown pass out to the left side of the field. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. NC State's going up 10. Should be fine. Start of the fourth quarter. Should be fine. Wake marched right up the field. And Damon Claiborne, who was really, really good in this game, had a 32-yard touchdown run to cut it to 3. And all of a sudden, game on. The question was Wake Forest defense going to get a stop? Because Wake Forest defense, as you know this year, Joe, that's not really their thing. And it wasn't really their thing in this game against a pretty mediocre NC State offense. Joey, by God, they found a way to get a stop.
Yeah.
NC State 3 and out, and lo and behold, Wake Forest strung together yet another fantastic long offensive drive, sucking life out of the clock, and Damon Claiborne finished it off with another touchdown run. They were just really, really good, and they kept their offense on the field in the fourth quarter and got their defense off of it. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. That's exactly what happened in the fourth quarter here.
I was going to say, you mentioned that CJ Bailey touchdown pass, and it's like from there, Wake had 2 drives, 9 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, 4.5 minutes. 13 plays, 65 yards, touchdown, 6 minutes. In between there, NC State, 3 and out, 1 play, interception. That is as dominant a closing effort on Wake's behalf that I can imagine. What a fourth quarter for them to win a game. I mean, you're down by 10 early in the fourth, and the way that Wake has struggled this year, and as you mentioned, especially the defense, I mean, and needing them to come up with a big stop, and they got it twice. I mean, NC State had the ball with like a minute left or so, only down 4. You just need to go down and you know, you've got time to go down and score a touchdown, try to win the game. Wake shut it down immediately. And just, again, really impressed with Wake here. NC State's got issues, man. They do.
Dude, so many. And that's the story. That's the story here. Like, great win for Wake Forest, but like they're not going to a bowl game because they're not very good. NC State, I think, is the story because of what we thought they were going to be relative to what they are is like so far off. And I understand that Grayson McCall got hurt here, and I'm glad he's okay. Released from the hospital and everything. We'll see. But NC State's been having issues offensively even when McCall has been in the game. I know he's missed some time and he comes back and gets hurt again. That sucks and that's no fun. But NC State's been having issues even with him in the lineup. And I don't know. Everything on offense just seems like a struggle. And I should break out the Ryan Day. I'd like to know where James Curley is right now. I was talking all that shit in week 1. I'd like to know where he is right now. I'm wondering if NC State's going to make a bowl game. And
it's a valid question with what they got left on the schedule. A lot of losable games.
They got Syracuse at home next week, and it's an 8:00 game, so that's going to be a tough one in Raleigh, I think, for I mean, it's a tough game for NC State, but I think it's tough for Syracuse to go into that environment, so that's something that we'll keep an eye on.
They're going to be underdogs in that game, right? They have to be underdogs in that game, I would imagine. Let's see, I got... What does ESPN have? Syracuse minus 4. Yeah.
4, yeah.
4.5 so far. Yep.
Yeah. They will travel to Cal the following week. I mean, that's an under game. I don't know what the total's going to be there. That's an under game.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I lock that up now? You got the sound ready? Stanford. It's Stanford after a bye, which maybe.
Sure,
Duke.
maybe. It's at home.
At Georgia Tech, probably not. At North Carolina, we'll see.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only game where there are 3 games where I think there will be definitive underdogs, and that's Syracuse, Cal, and at Georgia Tech. There's a chance they're an underdog at home against Duke. There's a chance they're an underdog on the road to Carolina at the end of the year. I think that's on the table. I would be kind of surprised if they were a home underdog to Stanford, but if it's on the CW, we'll see.
Yeah.
So
you never know. Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. NC State in a precarious spot here.
Just not a very good team.
Yeah. Definitely disappointing compared to what we thought we were going to get coming into the year. I mean, they have not lived up to that at all. So
trailed to Western Carolina, got destroyed by Tennessee, struggled to gain separation against Louisiana Tech, got destroyed by Clemson, barely beat Northern Illinois, and lost to Wake Forest at home. That's the NC State season so far. That is an unmitigated disaster. That is awful.
Yeah. It's about as bad as you could imagine it going preseason. And throw in Grayson McCall getting hurt, and I mean all the things that they've had to deal with. I mean, just feels a little bit reminiscent of my Atlanta Braves season that just got wrapped up. Is like, I'm not going to say it's like absolute worst case scenario, but like it's pretty down there in terms of like range of outcomes that you could have expected. This is about as bad as you could have reasonably expected.
I got to get a listing of all the 3-3 P4 teams, but I'm willing to bet NC State's toward the bottom of that list. I bet it's an exclusive group. I know Virginia Tech's on there. I'd take Virginia Tech on neutral field, but I would love to see that list. I know at least Virginia Tech and NC State are on it.
Mike, the official monger of the worst team of each record in the country. Duke was the worst 5-0 team. Yeah, exactly.
Boston College last year, worst. I think at the time it was worst 6-0 team in the country, and Virginia Tech went up to Chestnut Hill and beat that ass. I would love to be that worst X versus X team. I would love to be that guy.
Yep.
I could be that guy for it.
Oh yeah, you could do that. You fill that role.
Yeah.
Wake 34, NC State 30. Mike, last one. You want to bring us home with your Hokies?
Virginia Tech 31, Stanford 7. So boring. Game was so boring. Virginia Tech jumps out to a 14-0 lead at half. This was Virginia Tech just thoroughly outplayed Stanford here, but it was almost like everybody, I think you mentioned this, everybody just kind of shook hands at the beginning and said, let's get this over with as quickly as possible. First half flew by. Second half also flew by. Mm-hmm. And Virginia Tech just kept running. I mean, it was a lot of running the ball. And Stanford's rushing defense, I think, had been giving up less than 70 yards per game. Of course, you look at who Stanford has played, and it's probably no surprise that they've given up less than 70 yards per game. Virginia Tech eclipsed that mark at halftime. But it was a struggle. Like, Virginia Tech it's not that they had a bunch of success running the ball. Stanford's got a good rushing defense, but Virginia Tech just kind of stuck with it here. And, missed field goal. Stanford's first two offensive possessions, missed field goal and then a fumble. Not great.
I was going to say that was, I tweeted that out at some point, I think that was the really instructive moment of this game was the first three possessions.
Yeah.
So Stanford gets the ball to start out with. They go 10 plays, 40 yards. They get down, into kind of I guess what you would call the green zone, kind of that 20 to 40 range. Kick a field goal and miss it. Virginia Tech, 7 plays, 65 yards, touchdown, under 3 minutes. Like just bing, bang, boom, down the field, done. So Stanford gets the ball back. 12 plays, 47 yards. They get down inside the 5, and they fumble, and they lose it. And a drive that took over 6 minutes off the clock.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, so we're going to sustain these long drives and then just find new and creative ways to not score at the end of them. Sure. By the way, Stanford's third drive, 8 plays, 26 yards, punting in plus territory.
Yeah.
So, again, nobody was really interested in doing anything too crazy here. It was, again, it just felt like let's just get this over with and get the hell out of here kind of spot. I mean, the whole game was over right at 3 hours. So this day and age of college football, that is cooking.
It was speaking of cooking, this was like the crock potting of the year. Like, Virginia Tech went up 14-0. The game was over. Like, Stanford's offense was so bad. Justin Lamson is awful.
It wasn't good.
Like, I would say former ACC quarterback, but then you remember Stanford's in the ACC now. He is terrible. And I think Ashton Daniels probably gives you a little bit more in the running game that you feel good about, but this was a situation where Stanford just was not going to be able to throw the ball because that's been an issue they've had throughout this year so far, but they really weren't going to be able to throw it with Justin Lamson, and they lost the rushing element to the offense that they have when Daniels is in the lineup. Lamson tried to run. He had a couple of nice runs in this game, but Virginia Tech's defense, I think this was the best game they played, and I thought they played pretty well last week against Miami and just kind of ran out of gas. But they played really well here, only gave up one play of over 20 yards, just limited explosives, which it's, again, adjust for the offense that they played, but also, like, Virginia Tech's done this against offenses like this before, where you're like, oh my God, why are they running all over us? Why are they throwing all over us? This offense is ass. They didn't do that Saturday, which is a step in the right direction. 2 good weeks of football here. They played well against Miami, played well enough to win against Miami, and played well this week. And I come out of this stretch thinking that Virginia Tech was going to be 1-1 in these 2 games. That's exactly what they did, but I feel somewhat better about direction of the team versus the first 4 weeks of the year. I think they've played much better the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Watching them control a game this way is always a good feeling. Like, you got to halftime and there was never really a doubt in your mind of who was going to win the game. I mean, that's a nice leisurely afternoon, especially for a freaking road cross-country conference game. Like,
never in doubt.
That's always nice. Always nice.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech 31, Stanford 7. Mike, that's all I've got. Anything else? Anything we're forgetting here?
Let's go to the MAC.
Bowling Green 27, Akron 20. Falcons got it done. Didn't cover, though.
It's a lot more interesting than it needed to be.
Man,
there go all my
can
fun
I say
Bowling
about
Green
this
takes.
game? Let's pull up the box score real quick and see what happened.
I want to let's there go all my fun Bowling Green takes from when they were playing all these like really good teams tough early in the year. They have just really not looked good since then.
Welcome back to your regularly scheduled Scott Loeffler programming as Bowling Green that took Penn State to the brink, took Texas A&M to the brink, now is being taken to the brink by 1-5 Akron.
Yeah.
Bowling Green scored a touchdown with under 3 minutes to go to take the lead. It was a tie game at that point. This is a bad Akron team. I don't know why
they're bad.
What are we doing here? What are we doing? I don't know. Akron did get a scoop six in this game, so they got a cheap touchdown, which helped make this a little closer than it should have been.
Man, I'm holding an over 6.5 ticket. So let's get this thing into gear again, please.
I was say they're up to 2-3 now, which, man, you felt really good seeing how they performed, and then they lost to Old Dominion, and they screwed around and nearly lost to Akron here. So yeah, you need Bowling Green to get going.
Losing to Old Dominion is tough. Old Dominion is pretty bad. That's tough. That's a tough one to swallow.
Definitely is. Yeah. All right, Mike, I think that's all we've got game-wise. You want to do some awards?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Can we start with the Brian Van Gorder Memorial You Tried Award?
I got a can. Is it Syracuse's special teams?
It's the Syracuse punt unit in particular. Again, you had a punt so badly blocked that the punter didn't even try to kick it and tackled way behind the line, number one. And then number two, you had a punt blocked and recovered for a touchdown. So basically, the punt unit by themselves responsible for 2 touchdowns for UNLV in a game that took overtime to win. So, Syracuse special teams coordinator and punt unit, you tried. It was a good effort, and we'll try again next week. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's good. Let's move on. I got one for the Go ACC moment of the week. I think it's pretty obvious. Whatever the hell that Thomas Castellanos thing was.
Yeah.
Again, that was
he basically recreated that iconic Jameis falling backwards fumble thing from the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
That's almost exactly what that was.
Yeah, incredible. Was going to throw it, ended up being a fumble, and nobody from Boston College was within 5 yards of the ball once it skipped into whoever. I think it was Sanker. I think it was Sanker from UVA.
Yeah, might have been.
Picked it up and ran it in. So yeah, what a mess.
Yeah,
what a mess.
That was fun. Go ACC to that. I'd also give a big Go ACC to these officials who continue to come back from replay reviews with just completely unfathomable outcomes. So Go ACC to that as well.
We're gonna have to get a referee kit and do some sort of jersey retirement to the ACC officiating. We gotta do some sort of jersey retiring so that we don't have to keep bringing it up in weekly awards. But the officiating has been so bad.
It has been really bad.
It's been awful, man.
I can't think of a year where we've said man, the officiating's been really good this year. So it's.
But doesn't it feel worse?
Thing,
doesn't it feel worse though?
I think if I'm saying that it feels worse, it's because it is in moments that are really consequential right now.
Yeah.
I think back to what was the replacement referees in the NFL, and you had the Monday night game that ended on one official, touchdown, one official incomplete or interception. And it was this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with is end of game, big time, winning time moments that the officiating is screwing it up. And it's that's what drives me nuts. So anyways.
Yeah. That's fair. Which award next, Joey?
Probably the Kobe Bryant Memorial Volume Shooter of the Week.
I mean, there are a lot.
We had some candidates. Yeah, we had some candidates.
There are a lot. Stanford's running game.
That was an adventure.
Their leading rusher had 8 carries for 47 yards. They also had another guy with 11 carries for 47 yards. It's Micah Ford, their star freshman, who got hurt at the end of this game. Couldn't put any weight on his ankle, which isn't good because he's been like the guy they hand it to most often. So that hasn't been great.
Yeah, not great there.
Boston College cannot run the ball. So
I was gonna say,
literally anybody there.
Yeah, that whole team just trying to run the ball. I mean, again, non-sack adjusted, but 29 carries, 65 yards. That is certainly a game on the ground for
Duke.
Eagles.
Duke could not run the ball against Georgia
Duke
Tech.
had a tough time as well. Yeah.
So we got a lot of we got like entire running back rooms going for volume shooter of the week this week.
By the way, in a losing effort, Cal's running back room, 25 for 73 on the ground, and that includes a couple of big plays. Like, that's 25 for 73, of which 20 for like 11. I mean, like they just could not run the ball at all against Miami for the most part, other than just like a few plays. So yeah. To all that we say, Kobe. Mike, anything else here?
Queen Elizabeth's II Memorial You Died Award goes to Stanford.
Yeah, I think so. That was a tough scene.
Like, come on, man. Come on. Do anything on offense. Literally anything.
Florida State's been retired from this award, right? Like, that's like a weekly occurrence these days.
I think so. You know what I'm thinking though, Joey? I'm thinking like it's like that Scooby-Doo meme where it's like you got Brock Glenn and you like pull the mask up and it's actually DJU. It's kind of how I felt watching that game against Clemson.
I see what you're laying down there. Yeah, kind of felt that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
Team of the week. SMU? Wake?
I think it's we got a couple. SMU, Wake, I think Miami to some degree, given the kind of hell they were in on the road in a tough environment. So
Syracuse.
That's a candidate. Syracuse, yeah.
There's a few teams that had really good and big wins kind of in their own ways. So
yeah.
I'll go Syracuse. We got a good Syracuse contingent in the chat. Shout out to them showing up on Sunday night. Give me the orange. Team of the week. Getting that win on the road in Las Vegas.
That's good. Player of the week?
Player of the week. Eli Holstein, maybe?
Candidate. Damon Claiborne from Wake, just because of when he scored his 2 touchdowns. That's
Damon Claiborne,
definitely a candidate. Cam Ward. I feel like we can just say Cam Ward every week.
So him and Xavier Restrepo was huge for them. Aronde Gadsden for Syracuse. There were some good individual performances this week for sure. Welcome back, Jamal Haynes. Good Jamal Haynes, by the way, healthy Jamal Haynes.
Yep, and Cal star linebacker Cade Ulave had 15 total tackles.
He was all over the place in that game. All over the place.
Yeah. He's good.
Yeah,
he's an all-conference player, man. He's a stud. This is a league that has a bunch of really good linebackers, but he's going to be in the mix. He's only a sophomore. He's a good player.
Yeah, really good. Really good. Some good stuff from Cal on that defense for sure. All right. A lot of candidates there. You pick your own. Pick your own adventure.
Yeah. Bunch of offensive guys and one really good defensive guy. So.
That's right. All right, Mike. That's all I've got on week 6. You want to work on getting out of here, come back and talking about week 7?
Let's do it. Week 7 already.
Week 7. This is the one that we've been talking about for like a month and a half now, because this is the one there's only 6 games. So I look forward to this hour and a half preview that we're going to be doing later in the week.
Yeah. It's like clockwork.
Yep. So keep tuned here. We've got some more games coming up. We got a lot of teams on bye this week, but we have 6 games, 5 conference, including 1 out of conference. Stanford at Notre Dame is this week as well. So a lot of teams off, but keep it tuned here. If your team isn't playing, keep up with what else is going on in the conference. So come find us here, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. We'll be going live, previewing these games probably Wednesday night, I would imagine, Mike.
Yep. Plan on.
All these games are on Saturdays. We don't have any weeknight action this week. So yeah, come hang out with us Wednesday night, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We are working our way towards 500 subscribers. We're getting really close. Appreciate you guys for your support. Share us with your friends. You know, we're trying to build this community here. So help us build that as you will. Mike, we're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And I think some of these platforms are still active or like named these things. I'm just like saying words at this point. So wherever you find your audio, go find us there. Hit the subscribe button. Would appreciate that. We're on Twitter @FTRSJoey, @Mike McDaniel SI, together @BC Podcast ACC. Send us an email, basketballconferencepodcast@gmail.com.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Where else on the social medias, Mike?
Facebook.com/basketballconference, rate, review, find some of our podcasts there. Joey's plugged the YouTube. Shout out Scott.
Shout out Scott.
Miss you, buddy.
Yep. Missing Scott. Looking forward to having him back sometime soon.
For sure.
Shout out to our sponsors, Homefield, Rhoback, Section 103. Use promo codes. All that good stuff going to be in the description down below. Use the links as they're there. That is helpful for us. And thanks for supporting our sponsors. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Mike, I think that's all I got. Anything else? You want to move on to week 7?
Nice tidy hour 46.
Yeah. As we do. This is just one of the many reasons we need Scott back here is to keep us in line.
Moves along. I was on my good mic tonight though, Scott, so got that going.
There you go. That's the really important part. So, Mike, you want to come back and preview week 7?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're going to get out of here, come back and preview those games, and we'll talk to you then. In the meantime, until then, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. Shout out to the folks in the chat tonight. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Until next time, go ACC.